welcome to Off Script. So we didn't do an episode last week because we were busy. We have lives, and we are working on work-life balance, which we'll hit on later.
Yep.
Anyway, all that to say, welcome back. We've had some awesome stuff happen, and we'll kind of fill you in on what's been going on. So Matt and Maddie are having a baby. We threw a baby party for Matt and Maddie. It was fun. Tony, he's been hanging out with his buddies at his buddy's shop. Tony, what have you been doing? I just got back from a bucket list trip with my parents to Kentucky. Got a lot of great podcast content from that trip. Thank you, Mom, for continuing to screw things up. And
Ouch.
yeah, love ya, but thanks. And yeah, what did we miss there? Anything else?
You got into golf.
I did get into golf. Yeah, I watched Happy Gilmore too the other night too. Yeah, I was like, man, it inspired me a little bit more. I was like, I need to get in this maxi league, man. That's probably more my style. Like, can I have that surgery? I don't know. Anyway, I did get into golf.
You realized you have to wear polos on a golf course?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I didn't know there was a dress code. So Jess was like, hey, you want to go play some golf? And I was like, sure. And I was like, wearing my gym clothes. And she was like, I don't think you can do that. And I was like, who says, right? And so then Caden, shout out to Caden, he's been trying to teach me how to play golf, my cousin's boyfriend, but he's like, yeah, you have to wear a polo. And I was like, I don't even own a polo. Like, what? So I ended up having to wear like one of my old insert agency name polos. And I was just like, looked so dumb. And it was a men's one, so, it's like boxy and, definitely wasn't flattering for me, but I've since bought a lot of polos. We went to Dick's and I spent $400 on golf clothes. So yeah, but that was also, Jess says she's in her skort era. So I don't know how many skorts I bought, but all different kinds, I guess, but set. Anyway, yeah.
Yikes. Well, that's not even the cheapest or the most expensive part of golf. So
I know. Shoot. We got matching outfits for Cabo. We're going in November, and the green fee was like $300 each.
Are you going to golf in Cabo?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm taking my clubs.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Don't lose your balls.
Yeah.
You got to pay for them.
What?
When you lose them. Yeah.
I gotta pay $300 per green fee and then pay for the balls that I miss?
Yeah.
Or lose?
If you lose them, oh yeah, that's a racketeering. That's how they get the money. They will go search for your balls that you lose, and they'll be like, hey, $5 for all of these. So don't lose your balls.
I've never had that problem. Didn't have any to begin with. But anyway.
Let's go into today's episode. Yeah. So today we're unpacking the hard truth. What you allow is what you lead. Because your culture isn't built on your mission statement. It's built on your margins.
Yeah. So let's get into it. A good example, I guess, I'll use personal life because it's easier. We were on the bucket list trip for my dad to Kentucky to see the Ark, which if you're driving through, maybe stop by. I don't know. Anyway, my kid was like, with our whole family there. So I have 2 brothers and a sister, and then my sister has kids. And so it's like everybody, right? So he's excited, and, he's basically like hyped up on ice cream and stuff, like a little, the whole time. Maybe cut, I don't know. But so he would get excited, and we were like, hey, Bubby, go get shoes on. And he'd be like, no, right? And I started noticing, like, he was saying no a lot, right? And, Jess is a bargainer. So she'd like, if you put your shoes on, I'll give you a sucker, and like, he's like, okay. So you go put his shoes on. And then, next thing I know, he's trying to like bargain. Right. And I'd say, sit down or go put your shoes on. And he would say no. And then he wanted to bargain with me. And you should see my brothers. Like, this is really what woke me up was like, I said, I think we were at a restaurant when this one happened. And I was like, Bub, you need to sit down. And he's like, no, I will if I can have whatever it was he wanted. And my brothers were like, what? And they look at me like, like, what is happening? Like, how? And I was like, God. And I'll say, like, you hate to have to enforce it sometimes because, like, I'm not a bargainer. If I tell you to sit down, I mean you have to sit down. If not, you're going to go sit in timeout. And sometimes that means that I have to take you and be the parent and watch you because I can't just leave you outside, right? So then it affects the time you're having too, right? So all that to say, having hard conversations is uncomfortable. Sometimes following through is uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. So all that to say, what you allow is what you're going to get, right? That is what determines the culture of your team. We'll talk about my toddler, but it's essentially the same thing.
It is. And that's kind of what we're going about in this episode, is about standards, right? Yep. So your toddler knows the standard.
Absolutely.
He knows, hey, sit down in public. He knows, put your shoes on. He knows when you tell him to do something, to do it. But now he's trying to slip past that standard and see what he can get away with. And just like being a leader, you can't let that toxic or the standard slip. You have to keep enforcing that standard. Just like Mystal said, you have to be able to be comfortable when it's uncomfortable.
Yeah, consistency. Eventually you're going to run out of suckers, to keep bribing people with. But you have to stay consistent. So bribing is not a very good option.
No, don't say that.
I'm not judging anyone's parenting.
I'll get in trouble.
Skills or,
Yeah. I'm kidding, Jeff.
I forget that she watches this.
No, actually, I don't even think she watches it. To be quite frank, it's fine.
Well,
it's
Sarah
okay. We'll keep
narc
going.
on me.
No, I already narked on myself. I already told her. I was like, yeah, we already had.
But yeah, like consistency. It's hard, and it's hard to apply that in a work setting.
Yeah. And I'll say, like, just to kind of hit on the work aspect of it. I'll just use myself as an example. Me being a team leader, like, my guys, thankfully, are all high performers and disciplined, and they know the standard and they meet it. But there are many times that, say I had a guy who was not meeting the standard and the rest of them were busting their butts, right? And they're performing every single day and meeting the team standard. And I had someone who was not. The quickest way to kill that culture is by not having the hard conversations and holding the person who is subpar without holding them accountable, right? So I'll just use you and Matt. So say you aren't meeting the standard, Tony. Matt's out here busting his butt every day, and I'm praising you both and, like, letting you slide all the time, and you're not meeting the standard, right?
Yeah, that's not acceptable.
Exactly. So then Matt's going to start coming to work and being like, what the heck? This guy...
Point?
Yeah, what's the point? This guy's getting the same pay. He's getting the same benefit. Everything's the same. And clearly she doesn't mean what she says, because if she did, she'd be addressing that. A leader should be addressing it, right? And so that's the quickest way to kill morale and culture within your team or, your company or whatever, right? And I think a lot of times, and I'll be the first to say, there's been times I've had to have hard conversations, and trust me, I didn't want to have to do it. No one wants to have conflict, right? Believe it or not, like, I'm a very direct person, so some people wouldn't believe that, I'd rather just be direct and get it over with, and so that's very much the approach I take, because you have to be able to be capable of having hard conversations. So all that to say, trust me, I get it. You probably don't want to have to call that person in. You probably don't want to have to be like, hey, you are not meeting the standard or whatever. Just do it for all the people who are. Like, that's my thing. Have the hard conversations for the people who are performing. Because they're noticing. They notice.
Yeah. I'm on the same track with, it shouldn't always be the leader either. I mean, you should obviously be addressing it first. You should see it right off the bat and address it. But as a team member, if we were on the same team, like, I should have no issue with you coming and telling me I'm not meeting your standard, or you shouldn't have issue if I came and addressed you. Like, hey, you got to pick it up. You're making us all look bad.
Well, and being a part of a healthy team is accountability, and that's very much what should happen. Yeah. So if you're leading a team that you don't feel like your team members would feel comfortable to discuss their performance with each other, then you maybe need to consider taking a different approach in your leadership style. I hope that all my guys would feel comfortable and know they have a safe space to be able to have hard conversations with each other. And as a leader, I support that, right? So I would want them to be able to go to each other as adults and just be like, listen, this is our team standard. I notice these things. I care about you enough to come have a conversation with you and make sure you're okay. right? A lot of times, and I'm going to get into the mental health side of this,
Yeah.
like building and fostering a team with that is built on trust and vulnerability. It allows them when they know each other. And if, say, you're slipping and everyone's aware of our team standard and you're slipping, the first thought isn't going to be, oh, Tony's trying to hose me. It's going to be like, what's going on with Tony, right?
Yeah.
And so I expect that of my guys to care enough about each other to have a hard conversation with each other, right? And I would expect them to come to me and be like, listen, this isn't about trying to talk bad about Tony or anything like that. I'm concerned. So it doesn't happen on my team. Thank God it hasn't. I'm sure it will eventually. But when you create an environment where guys care enough about each other to intervene before someone ruins their career, like that to me is the expectation. So instead of looking at it as, having to have a hard conversation with someone because you're going to have to discipline them or they aren't good at their job or whatever, look at it as you care enough about somebody that you hold them to the standard. And when they aren't doing that, then you can think, okay, what's going on at home? Or what are other things happening? How can I help him? It's not about hammering their it's about helping them, right?
Yeah.
And when leaders look at it that way, everything changes.
Yeah. That's taking care of the whole person,
Yeah.
not just the work part. A lot of managers seem to see just the work part. Hey, you're failing here, you need to pick it up. A leader's going to see the whole person. What's going on with you right now? It's like everyone's cyclic, right? Everyone has their ebbs and flows, ups and downs. But like when you see someone fall off the standard, that's a thing that needs to be investigated. You have to go talk to them. What's going on? What's going on?
Is it a home life balance?
Right.
Did something happen at home? Did something happen at work?
Yep. Well, and if you don't have a clear standard, that's the other thing. If you don't have a clear standard, you cannot make these evaluations, right? So that's the whole point of this episode. If you do not have a clear standard for your team or your company or your relationships at home, then you have nothing to base the product on, right? You have nothing to gauge whether you're on track. And so that's why they're so important. And that's why every year I have a meeting with the guys and we talk about what our standards are going to be for the next year. We do it as a team. Everyone's clear on that. And then we can base their performance off that clear standard. And now the guys know we do it together. So they know, like say if you aren't meeting your standard, he's going to see it. So now he knows, hey, this isn't normal. The alarm bells go off, right? He chose this. We chose this as a team. But without a clear standard, you have nothing to base any of the criteria on, right?
Yeah.
So if you haven't set clear standards with your team or at home or at work, you need to, because if you can't, then anything that happens from there, you have no context.
Yeah. And that leaves us with the question, just like every other episode on these leadership podcasts that we give you guys, we're going to end it with a question. So with that question, do you have a standard? If not, we need to make a standard. Evaluate your standard. Does your standard need to be reset? Do you need to change the standard? That's going to be all based on you, your job, your home balance, anything really. That standard is what you set as that manager.
Well, and then here's an even more intimate question you should ask yourself. Have you set standards, but you haven't held them? And if that's the case, I highly recommend you humble yourself before your team and admit that you've set a standard and you have not held it. And what you guys are going to do as a team to get back on track. Because as a leader, you are the one that's responsible for the performance of your team and you are responsible for their failures. So figure out how you're going to fix it. And then I suggest the best way is to own it in front of your team. And that's the way you build trust. So
if you're struggling to come up with a standard, I'll give you an example. So let's just say today the meeting begins at this scheduled time. Don't wait for it. Don't have side conversations. Be on time. That's the time I expect you to get there. That's an easy standard that I think everybody could set.
Time standards are easy to keep because everyone can track it. Everyone knows when it's 5 p.m. And if you're late, it's obvious. So time standards are easy to track. If you want to go deeper, dig deeper.
Yep. Thanks for listening.